Okay, so real fast before we get in, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I am not the best Gears of War multiplayer player. I prefer campaign and horde, and I've never played Gears of War Ultimate Edition. I've only played Reloaded, so I don't really know much about Ultimate Edition. However, from what I understand, these are not issues that existed in Ultimate Edition, they're only present in Reloaded, so we'll take that in mind. So, with all that said, I want to talk about Gears of War Reloaded and how I have a fear that this game is not going to last very long in the multiplayer space because of issues that the Coalition made when they remastered a remaster. This is not a review of Gears of War Reloaded at all. This is more so just a impression on the multiplayer side of the game and how I think this multiplayer needs a lot of work if they want Gears of War to succeed on something like the PlayStation 5. If you don't know, or if you just haven't had time to play yet, or maybe you just haven't gotten to experience it for yourself yet, Gears of War Reloaded released recently, and with its release came Gears of War 1 multiplayer. Now, what's really cool about this multiplayer is that it has that classic 2006 Xbox 360 feel about the multiplayer. Old school lobbies are back, voice over IP is back, clunky and somewhat non-responsive controls are back. Gears of War is back. If you played Gears of War back in the day, you'll feel right at home playing this. Is what I would say if the Coalition hadn't done what might have been the stupidest decision they've ever made when it came to remastering a game with multiplayer. Gears of War Reloaded has two major issues relating to its multiplayer, that being the Nasher and the lack of skill-based matchmaking. Yeah, I know. We'll get to that. Now, as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Gears of War multiplayer. I enjoy it from time to time, but I pretty much exclusively play it split screen locally with friends against bots, or just I play it by myself to kill some time if I have a few minutes before I have to go to work or something. So I'm not exactly a pro at Gears of War multiplayer. Like I said, I prefer campaign, horde, and, well, bots. Though I have played a bit of Gears of War 5's multiplayer, well, for a few months after it came out at launch, but I've played a little bit of Gears of War multiplayer prior to Gears of War Reloaded, so I understand the meta and how Gears of War's multiplayer works in a competitive environment, not against AI bots. This is why the Nasher needs a major nerf. Now, I'm not saying that we should make the Nasher some useless weapon. I understand that the Nasher is very important in Gears of War. It's one of the best shotguns in gaming history, next to the sawed-off, or I guess the retro sawed-off from Gears of War 3. But that doesn't mean that it should be as powerful as it currently is in Gears of War Reloaded. This weapon is quite literally one of the least skillful weapons that I've ever seen in a multiplayer game, ever. The Nasher in Gears of War Reloaded is so overpowered, there's no reason to use any other weapon except for maybe the one-shot. Now, I'm not entirely sure what it was they did. I think they did both of what I'm about to say. They decreased the pellet spread and increased the damage per pellet. I could be wrong, it may have been one or the other, but I think it's both. But it creates a very overpowered weapon at even medium range, which it should never have been. The Nasher is a great shotgun because it forces you to get close to your enemy for a very satisfying kill. But with the Nasher currently in Gears of War Reloaded, you can use it as a medium-ranged weapon with no issue. And because it's so powerful, anyone who has any experience playing with the Nasher is probably going to know how to use the Nasher and abuse this mechanic. This creates what is honestly one of the most unbalanced multiplayer games I have ever played, because the Nasher can be used in so many different ways now. There's just no real counter weapon to it. It's as deadly as if it was at close range from medium range, but all other weapons are just ineffective. Well, except for the Hammer of Dawn, but I don't know if that technically counts as a gun. The issue is that anyone who's skilled with the Gnasher is probably going to end up dominating the game. Now, this isn't necessarily a huge issue. Meta weapons exist. Gears of War has meta weapons. It's always had meta weapons. But it's never existed to this level. It's never been this bad. However, I can almost excuse the overpowered Gnasher if they at the very least changed how matchmaking currently works. The way that matchmaking currently works is that they're trying to keep it just like how it was in 2006. You finish a match, you stay with the lobby. Even if you lost to them. Even if you beat them. Even if you totally destroyed them and there was no chance of them to ever win. You will stay in that lobby unless you manually leave. But that also means you'll stay on whatever team you were currently on. So if you were a Locust and you just decide to not leave the lobby, you will stay a Locust until you decide to leave the lobby. Even if the Coalition doesn't want to throw in skill-based matchmaking, which I personally think is a good thing for competitive shooters, it might not be the most fun mechanic out there because it's never worked properly, but I think having it at least somewhat is good. The least the Coalition could do is just reshuffle the lobbies. Unless, of course, people are playing in a party, which I somehow doubt everyone that I'm playing with is just going to be playing in a 4-man squad. Just reshuffle the lobbies after each match. At the very least, that'll give incentive to a team that may have just been completely dominated to stick around. Maybe next match they'll have a good player on their team. It might help decrease people leaving lobbies prematurely because they're either being completely dominated or they're completely dominating and there's no one playing against them. It is shocking how a game that supposedly has 1 million active players currently struggles to find matches. Now, I admit, this could just be due to poor netcode. Maybe my internet's just not the greatest. But I struggle to find matches on some game modes. I couldn't find a single competitive execution mode at all, which is insane to me. Maybe it was me. Maybe I just logged on too early in the morning and no one was playing competitive execution. But, and this is just an assumption, it really does feel like a lot of players are just sticking with simple, more casual stuff like Team Deathmatch, so they can learn the maps and maybe get a feel for how the Gnasher works and how to wall bounce or, I don't know, just use other guns other than the Gnasher. Very few games that I have joined have had either full lobbies or weren't almost done. And pretty much every time I've joined a team that's losing with no chance of coming back, no matter how hard we tried. On the few times that I've joined a match where my team ended up dominating, it was over relatively quick and everyone left because it's not fun to constantly be dominating. At least it's not fun to me personally. I like a little challenge in my games. A lot of these issues, at least for me, personally, I feel could have been alleviated if they at the very least just allowed private matches to have bots. That way, if you're new to Gears of War and your friend wanted to show you the game, you could practice against bots, get a feel for the maps, get a feel for how the guns work, just get to have a little bit of fun before you get totally bodied by Xbox players who've never stopped playing. We need games like Gears of War in our current gaming market. We need more AAA games like this. The last game we had that was somewhat like this was Space Marine 2, but its PvP was absolutely terrible. And it's just a shame that a great franchise like Gears of War just didn't try with its multiplayer. They made it, I'm not saying it's bad, but they made it worse compared to the original Gears of War multiplayer by making the Gnasher so powerful. And that alone might end up killing the game because who's going to want to play against people who know how to use a super broken and overpowered weapon? But if they're not going to fix the Gnasher, at the very least they need to fix how matches work, how lobbies work. Just reshuffle the players. If you're not going to include skill-based matchmaking, which I think you should, work on a good skill-based matchmaking system and put it in the game, but if you're not going to do that, just reshuffle the lobbies. Let players who are getting destroyed have a chance to maybe win. Don't let Gears of War die before it has a chance to breathe fresh air. Other than these two minor issues, I think Gears of War Reloaded is an incredible experience. This could be a great franchise on something like the PlayStation 5 to offer new and fun competitive multiplayer modes in our hyper-competitive multiplayer dominated game industry. And as much as I love Gears of War 1, I can't see Gears of War Reloaded being this magnum opus that it was in 2006, the thing that makes people want to stick around for a next game. If Gears of War E-Day does in fact come out on PS5, I don't know how many people who are currently playing Gears of War Reloaded who've never played Gears of War before are going to want to stick around for Gears of War E-Day. Especially not for the multiplayer. If Gears of War E-Day's multiplayer is anything like Gears of War Reloaded, it's not gonna succeed. But even if it's not anything like Reloaded, if the Coalition can just quickly fix at least one of these issues, people might be interested in sticking around for Gears of War E-Day whenever it comes out. Looking at Gears of War Reloaded as someone who's played Gears of War, it's an amazing experience. But looking at Gears of War Reloaded as someone who may have played Gears of War once or twice on a friend's Xbox way back in the day, I wouldn't want to stick around and keep playing this. Maybe I'll play through the campaign, but I'm not going to keep playing the multiplayer. It's unfair. It's unbalanced. It's not fun. New players just get absolutely destroyed, and sure, you can say skill issue or whatever, but how are you supposed to get better when there's not really a chance to get better? I am beyond stoked that Gears of War has come to PlayStation. I'm beyond stoked that I can get my friends to play one of my favorite game franchises finally. I don't want it to die and end before it had a chance to properly show itself off.